Real simple. I just don't even trust the ones you meet in church. So. Yeah, there you go. Met him in church. All right, I'm just excited about so many great things today I want to share with you. But first, I brought all of you a gift. It looks like this, and it's at the door outside on the table in a big box. We're part of a big food co-op. Y'all, I have never seen, America is a land of abundance. When you go to some of these food co-ops that we're a member of, and you just look at the food that these companies give away, it's staggering. It's just staggering how much food, and we are 5% of the world's population, and we feed the other 95%. And it's because of our form of government, which is based on freedom. As long as you're not doing anything illegal, immoral, or unethical that's breaking the law, wow, freedom is a wonderful thing. All you got to do is watch Braveheart one time to figure that out. Anyway, this is McRib sauce, and it's really good, and it's really fattening. You can either eat it or just tape it right up on your hips. It's at the door. You can have all you want. Speaking of funny things, most of us are getting up in years. If you're past 70, this is for you. And if you're not past 70, you'll be there soon. This is a true story that happened at an assisted living facility. The people who lived there all had small apartments, but they all ate in a central cafeteria. One morning, one of the residents didn't show up for breakfast, so they went upstairs and knocked on the door to see if everything was okay. The lady who knocked on the door could hear the gentleman who lived in there through the door, and he was kind of rummaging around. He said he's just running a little bit late, and he'd be down in a little while. So she went back to the dining area. An hour later, the gentleman still had not arrived. So she went back up to his room, and she found him sitting on the stairs. He was coming down the stairs, but he's having such a hard time. It's like he had a death grip on the railing to try to help himself down, and she saw he was having a lot of trouble getting his legs to work right. She told him she was going to call an ambulance, and he said, no, I'm not in any pain. I just want to have breakfast. So she helped him down the rest of the way, and he had his breakfast. And as he was returning back to his room, he was completely unable to even get to the first step. So she called an ambulance. A couple hours later, she called the hospital to see how he was doing. The reception says he was just fine as soon as they were able to get both of his legs out of one side of his shorts. I was going to say that's getting closer and closer to home. Anyway, I love that punchline. The last thing says, I'm sending this to all my children so they don't sell the house before they know all of the facts. That's great. Well, Jake, good to see you home. You look, how many pounds have you lost? Huh? 60? 60? 60. Wow. You found them. That's great. Well, you know what? All you got to do is, if y'all want to lose some weight, I got a great program for you. It's called the United States Military. It's kind of a rough way to go. We're glad you're home. We're proud of you. Thank you. They're very, very great. Great. Let me, before I start this morning, I want to encourage all of you, if you're not having a consistent daily quiet time, you're just missing out. I don't think you need to spend 20 hours a day on your knees praying and reading, but I do think you ought to have 5 or 10 minutes where you're constantly having a time with God. Jesus said, our Savior, y'all probably heard of him, Jesus, he said, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. There needs to be a time that I think you need to start your day by just saying, God, I just want you to know I'm seeking you first. Jesus said, seek ye first. It's a priority. I know, what do you do what are your first thoughts when you wake up? It may be work. It may be coffee. It may be let the dogs out. It's something. Well, close to those very first few thoughts ought to be, God, I want to start my day with you. See, he hasn't been asleep. The God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. But you have. So you wake up and he gives you a fresh start. Let him know he's on your mind. Willie Nelson wrote a song about that. Remember, you were always on my mind. That's a good way to remember, God, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. Yesterday I had a long conversation with, let me show you why this is important. I had a long conversation with my youngest daughter. She's just burning it up at work. I mean, she's like, she works for ADT, and she's like number 11 in the whole country. And she's just been working for them 2 years. She's setting hitting new goals. She's just doing great. But I could hear a lot of angst in her voice. ADT, that's the security company. And she's a high achiever. You know, it's like April and I talk about this a lot. She says, you know, all your daughters are racehorses. You know, and they are. I don't know where they got it from, but they just are that way. And so, anyway, we're having a long conversation, and I could hear this, if it is to be, it is up to me, in her voice. You know what I'm talking about. That's a terrible way to live. I think you ought to be a high achiever. I think you ought to try hard. I think you ought to get up, take a shower, get dressed, and look forward to a great day. But I think you also ought to realize that the next breath that you get is a gift from God. You see, there's 3 things that happen every day in your life that you have absolute no control over. You can't create oxygen, you can't make your brain work, and you can't make your heart tick. You have no control over those 3 things. Everybody take a deep breath in. There's another gift. You don't make oxygen. We're so arrogant thinking you make your heart beat? Let me see you make your heart beat. Let me see you. Dr. Geisler used to teach us in seminary, the greatest gift God ever gave you, other than Jesus Christ, was the ability to think. Your ability to think is the crowning jewel of God's creation in you. That sets you apart from every other thing in the universe. And animals can react. They can understand what horns and fire and things like that are, but they can't think and reason like you and I can. So yesterday we had this long conversation, and I said to her, I said, sweetie, I'm very proud of you for being a high achiever, but let me explain something to you. You're 39 years old. I'm thinking, my youngest daughter's 39. God, that means her father's getting older. And so I'll soon have all my daughters will be in their 40s. Isn't that amazing? Gosh. I don't think about that. Yeah, try 50s. I'm chasing that pretty hard. Here's the thing that's amazing, though. We're having this conversation. We're talking. I was encouraging you, make sure you keep the Lord first. Give him your abilities. He knows how to be a high achiever. I mean, he created the universe. It's not a bad deal. I mean, you know, it's something, if you can run a business or a church. How'd you like to run the universe? We see right clear that our people, the elected officials, don't know how to run a government. So how are you going to run a universe? Think about that. That's powerful. So I explained to her, I said, just make sure you just ask the Lord to guide you and to help you. So this morning I was up and I was having my quiet time. Today's March the 7th. I want you to listen to this one sentence. Well, I won't read you the first 2 or 3. Let me help you through this day. This is today's reading. God rearranged them last night while I was asleep. And he moved this one to today. Let me help you through this day. The challenges you face are far too great for you to handle alone. You are keenly aware of your helplessness in the scheme of events you face. This awareness opens up a choice to doggedly go it alone or to walk with me in humble steps of dependence. There it is. I took a picture of it and I sent it to her and I said, just wanted to let you know how much I love you and how proud I am of you. And here's a thought that was in this morning's reading. God doesn't want you, may I say to all of you, God doesn't want you to doggedly go it alone. That is not his plan. Jake in the Israeli army in the Old Testament, The Israeli soldier was prepared. Israeli army knows how to fight. They're David, you've maybe heard of him, King David. His group, they were undefeated. They never lost a battle. The greatest king, the greatest military leader who ever lived, a man who was undefeated, never lost a battle. He was tough, though. David was very unconventional. When David went into a city, he told his soldiers, kill everything. Everything. Kill every man, woman, child, dog, cat, everything. Because I don't want any reprisal to ever come back against me from this group. They'll all be dead. You say, that's a little harsh. God told him one day when he decided to build a temple, God said, you can't do it. Your hands are too bloody. You're a man of war. See, David knew how to fight. He was a really incredible warrior. And that works okay in military. But that doesn't work okay in business. That doesn't work okay in families. You have to learn how to get along with people. You don't have to doggedly go it alone. But the military soldier, and it's one of my favorite verses, Jake, you ought to memorize this one. It's Proverbs 21:31. You can remember that, 21:31. It says this, the horse is prepared for the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord. Even David knew, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I know how to fight, I know how to go into battle. And you ready? And the last thing, Yahweh, God, we look to you and put it in your hands. You see, there's the battle. You're prepared, but before you step forward, you better go, Lord, this is in your hands. That's a great way to live your life. You do your part, knowing that God's going to do his part as you depend upon him. So we're in the book of Hebrews, and we're in chapter 11, and this is such a great chapter. Here's why. Here's why. This is like a breath of fresh air. And here's why Hebrews 11 is such a great chapter. Look, the whole book of Hebrews is about this. Over here was the time you came to know the Lord as your Savior. This is when you put your faith and trust in Christ. How many of you have ever put your faith and trust in Christ for salvation? You believe in Jesus. Raise your hand. Okay, that's right here. Me too. Okay, I did it when I was 8 years old. That's right here. This is called life. And over here is called heaven. This is where we're headed. Listen carefully. This is so cool. We need to have anticipation that we're on our way somewhere. Jeff's excited. He's on his way to Buckner's, okay? That's a great anticipation. That's something to look forward to. But listen, you got to make sure you understand this already happened in the past, and this is what's going to take place in the future. Where should your focus be? Well, your focus should be on, do I have the faith rest life? Every one of you, every situation, here it is. It's either faith rest or fear reaction. You watch you this week. Everything that happens will be faith rest. God, this is a situation. I want to trust you, guide you, and have faith and rest in you to lead me. Or fear reaction. Well, that shouldn't have happened. That's not fair. I can't believe they did that. Can you believe they said that? Look at what it's real simple. This is fear reaction right here. This is faith rest. God, I'm looking to you and I'm asking you to guide me and help me through this. I've said it before, but just in case you weren't here, you can know you're living a fear reaction life if you say this. Well, I'll be glad when this is over. If those words come out of your mouth, well, I'll be glad this is over. That's a fear reaction life. This is a faith rest life. I'll be glad when I learn what God's trying to teach me. God, just show me and teach me, guide me, help me. I want to be coachable. I want to be easy. How many of y'all ever had 2 or more children and one of them was easy to work with and the other one was as difficult as difficult? Okay. I don't want to be the one who's difficult as heck. I want to be the one that's easy. God, yes, sir. What was the question? Jake, did you notice that it's easier to cooperate than it is to fight with your drill sergeant? Did you ever learn that little? Yes, sir, drill sergeant. What was the question? That's the way to work with drill sergeant. So you see, working with God, this is where we are right now. And here's why we have Hebrews chapter 11. You ready? There are some that did it. There's some that made it. There's some that are your examples you can follow. And the whole chapter of Hebrews chapter 11 is God's Hall of Fame. Not arrogantly, but if God had a Hall of Fame and you could participate to be in it, how many of you would say, that sounds like a good plan. I think I'd like to be in God's Hall of Fame. Would you raise your hand? Come on, everybody raise your hand. Me too. I'm not talking about I want to be better than anybody. God, I want to please your heart. And he says, well, let me show you how to do it. Some did it. And this is a motley crew that we're going to look at. And these are the ones that God said. Some of these people that are in here, you want to say, as a matter of fact, we're going to look at a couple of them this morning. They make you look like an angel as we notice some of these people. All right, you ready? I'm going to blaze through this for those of you that are not here last week. I want to get to verse 10 is where I'm heading. We stopped with, I think, verse 17 last week, but let's go. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. That's this over here. God, I'm confident that you know what you're doing. I'm trusting you. I'm on my way to heaven. And now, in this life, I trust you. This is what ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand the universe was formed at God's command, so that what's seen was made out of what was invisible. Just review. Faith, Abel, Adam and Eve's children, two of them, they had others. Abel brought a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. Abel's offerings were, God, I brought you this lamb to die in my place. Cain, on the other hand, he is commended righteous when God spoke well of his offering. And by faith, he still speaks, even though he is dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from his life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. Notice, without faith it's impossible to please God. Anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and he rewards those who earnestly seek him. I'm going to kind of run ahead, come back to it in a minute. You say, listen, I enjoy talking to April. Why? I can see her, I can hear her, we can go back and forth. I can talk to Jeff. Tell me what's been going on. Give me an update on your doctoral program. He can look at me. God's a spirit. Developing a relationship with him is challenging at times. But since Andy Stanley and I were talking one day, and I said, but God bothers me at times. And I said, he just doesn't communicate like I like to communicate. I like to talk, I like you to talk, and let's get to know each other. Talking to God, all right, where is he? How do you do this? I can remember when I first started this journey, it was hard because I'm talking to somebody I can't see and believing that he's there. And he says, where two or more gather together, I'm right there with you. April and I are two. We'll start our day. Me, April, and Jesus and coffee. All right, that's not a bad start. Why? We'll actually talk to him like he's in the room with us. Jesus, thank you so much for showing up today. We ask you to be in charge of our house. If you want to clean it, that'd be okay too. He just says, I'll reward you if you'll seek me. Now, this is going to get spookier before it's over. Verse 7, Noah, when he is warned about things not yet seen in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By faith, he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness. That's in keeping with faith. This is Noah, the great man of faith. And after he saved his family and they all went into the ark, and after it was all over, he got drunk and passed out. That's what living with your family will do to you right there. By faith, Abraham, when God called him to go to a place he would later receive as an inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he didn't know where he was going. How many of you have ever felt like in life you just didn't know where you were going? You just felt lost. Anybody? God, I don't seem to know. I feel like I'm walking around in circles sometimes. God, guide me. Help me. Abraham was same problem. God said, to him in a dream one night, get up and leave and go to a land I'll show you. I hope God videoed that. Can you imagine a conversation the next morning with Sarah? Sarah, pack up, we're leaving. Where are we going? I don't know. How long is it going to take to get there? I don't know. What all should we take? I don't know. When will we know when we're there? I don't know. That'd been difficult, wouldn't it? God, I don't trust you. Help me. 9, we're almost at 10. That's where it makes a turning. Faith, he made his home like a promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs of him with the same promise. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their family lineage. Now, verse 10, now watch. For he was, don't miss it. You'll miss a great truth in life if you miss this verse. For he was, what are the next two words? Looking forward. Now, some of you may not know this, but the whole Old Testament is a looking forward. We are today looking back at what happened with Jesus. They were looking forward to what God was going to do. You'll see this several times as it comes up. I'm going to share this with you. Next time it'll come up, it's verse 13. He was looking forward to the city with foundation whose architect and builder is God. April and I, our favorite philosophy for marriage and life is Kenny Rogers. I mean, you know who Kenny Rogers is? Okay. Kenny Rogers, this is his philosophy of marriage and life. Have somebody to love, have somebody who loves you, and have something to look forward to doing together. That's pretty good when it comes to this life. The Bible says he was looking forward. God, I know I love you. I know you love me. I'm looking forward to what you're going to do in my life. Verse 11, by faith, even when Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was unable to bear children, because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. Now, when you read these stories, when you read these verses in Hebrews, they're just kind of glossing over the surface of these people's lives. When you go back and read the stories, which I commend you to do, you find out these people weren't lily white. When the angels that visited Abraham said, your wife Sarah is going to have a baby about this time next year, she'll be pregnant. What did she do? Anybody remember? She started laughing. She said, I'm going to have a baby. I'm a little past childbirth bearing age. And the angels walked in and said, why did you laugh? She said, oh, I didn't laugh. Now she's a doubter and a liar. The angel said, why did you laugh? She said, oh, I didn't laugh. He said, yes, you did. And then he said this, is anything too hard for God? These are the guys that hang around God. These are angels. And they're talking to this girl and this lady, this woman, and they say, you laugh at what we tell you? We're in the presence of God who breathed into a universe. And you think that's something too hard that he can help you not have to have a baby? You know the story. Yet she's commended in the hall of fame of faith. Because somewhere in the midst of all of that, I'm not sure, this doesn't make any sense. Somewhere in there was, God, I believe you. And that's all he's looking for. That's all he's looking for. God, I have faith in you. I trust you. Considered him faithful. I guess Sarah finished the day by saying, this makes no sense to me. But if God said I can have a baby, I guess I can have a baby. See, she considered him faithful who made the promise. Verse 12. And so from this one man, and he is good as dead, came descendants, and he was so old, he was way past having children, came descendants numerous as the stars of the sky and countless as the sands of the seashore. The whole Jewish race. Now, this gets really, really sticky here as we get to verse 13, so hang with me. All these people were still living by faith when they died. In other words, the things you and I look back on that happened, they were having to look as though they were going to happen. Now let me ask you a question. Which, in your minds, in your categories, which is harder? To believe something's going to happen or to look back and believe something has already happened? Which, in your how many of you think, I think looking forward to what will happen is harder than looking back at what happened? Can I see hands? How many think look back is harder than, okay, good. Everybody pass that. They died in faith. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. Here's what from a distance means. They were still looking forward to it. They were still anticipating this will happen in the future. They welcomed them from a distance, admitting they were foreigners and strangers on earth. This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My home is laid up somewhere beyond the blue. You know the song. Jeff will sing it next week. Now, here it is again. People who say such things show they are looking for a country of their own. God, we're anticipating, we're looking forward that you're going to do something. I don't know how many people live with, well, another day, got to go to work, got to feed the kids. In other words, life just has become very boring and meaningless. That is not the Christian experience. Look here, folks. This is the faith rest life. Whatever is going on, whatever it is, God is in the middle of that wanting to teach you and guide you. Not just here at church. This is a pep rally. This is for me to encourage you and help you, to let you know that tomorrow, when you're right in the middle of something that you just, I'll be glad when this is over, you go, wait, that's the wrong thing. God, what are you trying to show me in the midst of this situation? I had no idea yesterday when I was talking to my daughter and I was encouraging her that tomorrow morning's reading is going to be exactly what you need to encourage her. Now you'll have a frame of reference to go back and say, that's what I was talking about. You do not have to doggedly go through life alone. You can if you want to, or you can say to this invisible God, I just sense you are with me, and I believe it. As a matter of fact, I have heard, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting closer. Here's what I've heard. Are you ready? Here's what I've heard. The older I get and the longer I walk with the Lord, He becomes more real to me than everybody else. I think that's where you need to be heading. In other words, the people look around. You see all these people here? They're here and they're wonderful. But boy, Jesus is going to go with you you can talk to Him about anything and everything because He already knows what's going on. Why not have a conversation with Him when you're in the car? It reminds me of the story of the guy who was talking to Jesus. He said, Jesus, I know you're with me. He said, but I just need a good parking place today at Walmart. It just looks so crowded. Could you just be with me and guide me? And about that time, a car right at the very front started pulling out. And he said, never mind, Jesus, there's a car pulling out right there now. See how it is? We just are so prone to, never mind, God, I'll handle it. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. In other words, we just go back to Egypt. That's where we came from. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them. So you might remember what Jesus said? I go to prepare a place for you. Jesus is in the construction business. He's building you a home in heaven. I love the story of this pastor. He was standing in line, and they called his name Joseph Snow. Joseph Snow, pastor, he stood up. They said, yes, here, Pastor Joseph Snow. You are a pastor of a large church. We're giving you a cotton robe and a wooden staff. He looked at cotton robe and a wooden staff. He said, that's fine. They called the next Joe Cohen, cab driver, New York City. Joe Cohen stepped up. He said, yeah, that's me right here. He said, Joe, This is great. You get a golden robe and a golden staff. And the pastor said, hey, I don't understand. I was a pastor. I got a cotton robe and a wooden staff. And Joe Cohen over here is a cab driver in New York City. And he gets a golden robe and a golden staff. Peter said, yeah, up here in heaven we do things a little bit different. You see, when you preached, people slept. But when he drove, people prayed. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, I'm going to share with you some principles as we go through. Chapter 11 is just like meaty. If you don't memorize, you need to write this down, but if you don't write it down, memorize it. God will test you to develop you. Satan will tempt you to destroy you. And those two things feel very, very close. I'll say it again. I learned this in about 1975. It's been one of the hallmarks of my life that I believe God will test you to develop you. Satan will tempt you to destroy you. But those two things feel very, very much alike. Read the story of Job, and you know what you'll see through the whole 42 chapters? God is testing him to develop him. Satan is tempting him to destroy him. And guess who Job chose to listen to? The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job didn't default to, you ready? Here's your choice, faith rest or fear reaction. Here's faith rest. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. He is testing me. And when he has finished testing me, I will come forth as gold. That's called faith rest. Here is fear reaction. Well, that's not fair. And don't, listen, Job waffled some in there. To Eliphaz, Zophar, Bildad, and Elihu, his 4 friends. Here's what he said, the whole book. I did nothing to deserve this. Was he right? Yeah, he was right. He had not done anything to deserve that. Satan brought it on him. As a matter of fact, if you read the whole story of Job, God was the one that said to Lucifer, well, where have you been? And Lucifer said, roaming to and fro throughout the whole earth. And God said, have you ever met Job, my servant? Have you considered how much he loves me? I was reading that one night and I thought, God, you're such a troublemaker. God was the one that, how many of you want to raise your hand and say, I want God to mention me to Lucifer this week so Lucifer can come after me and bring all hell against me? Me either. But see, it's very true. The Bible teaches that we should have faith in God. Can I tell you something? And this is going to scare you. God has faith in you. Jake, I wasn't with you the whole time you were in training. I bet you were. I bet at times your faith really sustained you. I bet at times your faith sustained other people. You see, you might say, I don't know if I can do this tonight. Here's what God said, you can do it. You're going to lose 60 pounds, but you can do it. And you have. Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promise was about to sacrifice. Don't miss this. Here you go. You want to learn to think like God? The promise about to sacrifice his one and only son. Excuse me, God. Could I ask a question? What about Ishmael? Wasn't he the son of Abraham and Sarah? This gets a little sticky, doesn't it? So, Ishmael doesn't count. He was the son of Abraham. I mean, come on, Abraham and Hagar had Ishmael. Wasn't Ishmael his son? So I want you to squirm a little bit. I want you to squirm to get to know God's heart. Here's what God's heart is. He may have been Abraham's son by the relationship to Sarah, but he wasn't the promised one that I had said I would give him. In other words, You can do things your way if you want to, or you can work with God and do things His way. And His way's better. If you'll recall, from Ishmael came the whole Arab race, and from Isaac came the whole Jewish race. And that created a conflict between the Jews and the Arabs. I'm glad it only lasted a few weeks. Still one of the biggest problems in the whole world today. All because somebody said, never mind God, I got it. I'll doggedly do this myself. Abraham was going to offer his one and only son, the son of promise. Even though God had said to him, it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. Now, everybody buckle up, because this is one of the most challenging pictures in the whole Bible. God told Abraham through Isaac, all of your offspring will be blessed, and you will have children as numerous as the stars in the sky. Now God said, take his life and kill him. Gosh, God, why don't you make life hard on us sometimes? Because I'm testing you to develop you. I know I keep referring to Jake because 60 pounds of Jake vanished. You know why? Because he was in a place where he was being tested. They weren't trying to test him in order to destroy him, to tempt him to destroy him. They were testing him to develop him. Now watch what happens here. Look, Abraham reasoned. It's okay to think, folks. It's okay to think. Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so, in a matter of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from the dead. Abraham's going up the mountain anticipating, I've got to kill him. But wait a minute, God has already promised he's going to, through him, create a whole nation of people. And he's just a little boy. He's not married. He didn't even like girls. You know, you remember when you're growing up, guys, girls had cooties? Remember that? Girls had cooties. Been around the 7th or 8th grade, those cooties turned into cuties. Abraham's thinking, all right, if I kill him, God's got to raise him from the dead because he's promised. See, this is called faith. This is called faith. God, this makes no sense to me. And why would you do this? Because I'm testing you. I'm trying to turn you into a person of faith who will believe me. Verse 20, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regards to their future. Jacob and Esau were the twin sons that were born. Watch. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, I just want you to stop with Jacob. You ought to go back and read Jacob. Jacob was a liar, a swindler, and a cheat. His name means supplanter, or one who will wheel and deal to his advantage. Remember one day, y'all remember the story of Jacob and Esau? Jacob loved to stay home and cook with his mom. Esau was a hunter. Esau came in one day. Esau was like his dad. His dad Abraham was a warrior, was a hunter, and Esau was like that. Esau came in one day and said, what's that smell? And Jacob said, I've been cooking soup. We have the specialty of the house is my homemade vegetable soup. And Jacob said, would you like a bowl? And Esau said, yes, I'm hungry. I've been out. Jacob said, what will you give me for a bowl of soup? And Esau said, how about my birthright? Your birthright was like the most important. That was your inheritance. Now don't miss this. This is shocking. Esau did not care anything about his inheritance. In essence, here's what he said. I'd rather have something good to eat than a relationship with God. Talking about mixed up priorities. I'd rather have a good job than a relationship with God. I'd rather be able to date and do what I want to do on dates than have a relationship with God. I'd rather do what I want to do than have a relationship with God. That's Esau. Jacob looked at it and said, great time to take advantage of this. So give me your birthright and I'll give you a bowl of soup. And they traded. And later, Esau woke up. I made a big mistake. Jacob said, yeah, but now it's mine. If you read the story of Jacob, Jacob was a crook. Jacob was a cheat. Jacob was always looking at, how can I turn this to my advantage? You ever met anybody like that? How can I make this work out where I win? Because that's what I care about most. Me, myself, and I. That was Jacob. This is scary. You know the whole story. One night Jacob was traveling and he laid down. That's where he had the dream. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. He dreamed there's a ladder going up and down. And he woke up the next morning. I have $1 for anybody who will tell me, what did he say when he woke up the next morning? You're going to get rich staying married to me. This is great. You get a hold of, you get all of it. Okay. She just took all of it. Okay. The next morning he woke up and here's what he said. Surely the Lord was in this place and I didn't know it. Now, I hope you're catching this. He's traveling along. He lays down to sleep. He has this dream and he wakes up and he says, surely the Lord's in this place and I didn't know it. That's your theme verse for life. Surely the Lord's in this situation I'm in right now. Here it is. And I didn't realize it. I didn't recognize it. I didn't catch it. But now I do. Jacob and later and Esau met. And when they met many, many years later, Jacob said, he's going to kill me because of what I did to him. And when Esau was coming with all of his soldiers and his band of people, and Jacob sees him, Jacob says, this is it. And he just cries out for mercy to fall down before his brother. And instead of killing him, he embraced him. And they worked it out. And I'm just hitting the high parts. Later, God changed his name from Jacob. Does anybody remember what he changed his name to? Israel. A prince with God. Are y'all getting this? From a liar and a cheat and a supplanter to I'm going to make all this work out the way I want it to a prince with God. God, I have realized that what I did was wrong. And I just want to seek you and have you first in all that I do. Help me to learn how to do that. That's Jacob. It says that when he was dying, he blessed each of Joseph's sons. April's got $1. For anybody, surely you know what Joseph's 2 sons were named. That's right. He'll get $2 for that, one for each son. Ephraim and Manasseh. And names back in Bible times meant something. You remember after Joseph had Manasseh, he was already the prime minister of Egypt. And all of the hell he had been through for 13 years in prison, all that had been in his past. And he's now married and the prime minister of Egypt. And he has a son. He names him Manasseh. And you know what Manasseh means? God has caused me to forget all of my pain. You ever gone through something really hard? God can help you to forget that. That's in the past. Just like being a liar and a cheat and a deceiver, that's Jacob. Now Jacob's a prince with God. And he's got sons. And Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Verse 22, by faith Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. Make sure we get to we're going to get to verse 23, and that's where we stop. So he's got one more. I'm doing great, and I'll let us out on time. By the way, look, you ready? I'm trying. Somebody once, a little boy asked his mom, Billy Graham was preaching. He said, Mom, sometimes Billy Graham does this while he's preaching. He'll do that. What does that mean? She said, that means he's talking about God in your heart. He said, well, sometimes Billy Graham does this when he's preaching. What does that mean? He said, that means he's talking about God in heaven. He said, sometimes he'll do this when he's preaching. What does that mean? She said, absolutely nothing. Verse 22, by faith Joseph. These are the people that made it. Now, these are our heroes and heroines of faith. Joseph, when he was near the end, spoke about the exodus of Israel from Egypt and gave instruction concerning the burial of his bones. Why would he do this? You may tell you why? Because everybody wants to go home to be buried. When a soldier is killed, where do they send him? They bring him home. That's where you want to go when you die. You want to be. I've already got my funeral. What's it called? A plot and the gravestone on it. It's got my name. It's got the date I was born, April 22nd, 1949. It's got the day I was born again, November 26, 1957 is on there. And then it says transformed. And that date's blank. I hadn't filled that one in yet. I'm going to be a transformer. How's that? That's yet to happen. Now, don't miss this. It's just so powerful. Joseph's looking forward in Egypt to going home to the land of Israel. And here's what he says. He's 110 years old at the end of his life. And he says this, when God comes through and takes us out of Egypt back to Israel, to the promised land, be sure and take my bones and bury me there, not here. This is not my home. I want to be buried there. It's the very last 2 or 3 verses in Genesis chapter 50. You can read it. He says, take me home, country road. Isn't that precious? You know what that tells me? That tells me that he had faith that God was going to take them to the promised land. That's why Joseph got included. I believe that what God says is true. So make sure you take me with you when you go home. Then the last verse for today, because we're going to start next Sunday. You don't want to miss next Sunday. Charlton Heston is going to be here. You said, what? You just have to, of all the Sundays not to miss, you don't want to miss next Sunday. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. There's an old saying, when bad men become lawmakers, good men become lawbreakers. I'll say that again. When bad men become lawmakers, good men become lawbreakers. The midwives were told, kill all these babies. They said, no, we can't do that. We can't violate what God has told us to do. There's 6 places in the Bible, only 6. Maybe some Sunday I'll talk about that, where the king gave a command and God's people said, no thanks, we can't do that. Wonder if that'll ever happen in our lifetime. Wonder if that'll happen where the king says, here's the law, don't break it. And we have to say, no thanks, I can't obey that. When bad men become lawmakers, good men become lawbreakers. 6 times. You know another one in the New Testament where they were killing babies. Killing babies. Wonder if that could ever happen. And Mary and Joseph said, no thanks. As a matter of fact, an angel came and said, quick, get out of here so you don't have to obey this law. There's only a few times in the Bible where God creates a hierarchy of principles that one overpowers another. Do you want to hear one more? You want to hear one more? Rahab. They said to Rahab, the spies, she was there. They said, protect us. We're going to get killed. We're coming. She said, I know you are going to have this land. God's going to give it to you. She said, I am a believer in your God. She said, quick, go that way. And let me show you how to get out of here. And then when they came to her house, they said, were the spies here? She said, what spies? I don't know what you're talking about. You say, well, that was called a lie. No, it's a greater truth to save life than it is to tell the truth. These are seminary classes that last a semester that you have to work your way through. Because the hierarchy of needs and principles, there are some. that God teaches, but that's for another day. Well, here we are, folks. Down to Moses. Now let's have a little review. Raise your hand if you can name a name of someone we've talked about so far in the first 22 verses of chapter 11, first 22 verses of chapter 11, who made it into God's hall of fame because they were people of faith. Give me okay. Abraham, yes sir. Jacob, yes. Noah. Abel. Sarah. Enoch. That's a pretty good list, isn't it? Now, on the count of 3, I want you to say your name out loud. You understand? I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to say your name out loud. Okay? Who else could be included in God's Hall of Fame of faith? The answer is Robert. And that's your assignment this week. God, I just want to be a person of faith. I want to trust you. You see, here's the whole problem in a nutshell. And it is a lulu of a problem. You have to get to know and intimately have a close relationship with someone you cannot see. I told Andy that day we were talking, I said, boy, God bothers me about the way he communicates. And he started laughing. And I said, what's so funny about that? He said, only you would complain to the God who created communication that he doesn't know how to communicate well. He created communication. So that was the day I changed my mind and I said, God, however you want to do this is fine with me. It's not your job to change, it's my job to change. You're not on trial, I'm on trial. Help me to learn to get to know this person I can't see. And it's been a long journey and one, I'm here to tell you, one worth every effort that you put forward to do it. He will be with you. I look at you, many of you have known the Lord for a long time. He's more real to you than anyone else. He's more real to you than people you live with. He's more real to you than anybody on this planet. And He's the one you're going to spend all eternity with. That's His plan. And you're part of it. In the famous words of whoever said it first, it doesn't get any better than that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we love you, we bless you, we thank you that we want to be people of faith. We're looking forward to, we're longing for what you are preparing for us. And we can reason just like Abraham did that, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. That God's at work and He's changing us slowly. And even if we're a liar and a cheater and a deceiver, we will wake up to say, I didn't realize God was in this place. And He will help guide me and instruct me and teach me. And we will be able to say, now let me explain to you about my funeral. Here's the funeral plot and here's instructions about my burial. But I want you to know something. I will not be there. I've gone home. We thank you for that truth. Help us as we go through chapter 11 in Hebrews to make your heart glad by growing our faith every day. We love you and we bless you. Give us a great week as we have a faith rest life in all that we do. Trust you and ask you to participate in it. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, God bless you. Have a great week. Don't miss. What's it? Oh, that's for the. Hey, see, it pays to come to church and to know Ephraim and Manasseh. Remember, next Sunday, who's going to be here? Charlton Heston.